Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the serene embrace of a suburban afternoon, an ordinary house became the epicenter of Kashtan's transformation. He sat on the luxurious living room sofa, his body tensing with anticipation, as if every nerve was electrified. The gentle sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the small details of his hands, the neglected cuticles, and nails that seemed to mirror his inner turmoil. Kashtan was nervous, but it was a different kind of nervousness, one that carried the weight of self-discovery.
Eleanor, are you set?
A warm voice carried from the kitchen, belonging to Olivia, his sister and confidant. Hearing his chosen name on her lips brought a surge of emotion. Kashtan's response was tentative, his vocal cords betraying his initial hesitance. I'm ready. Olivia appeared in the doorway, carrying a small basket filled with various nail care supplies. Her warm smile put Kashtan at ease as she set the basket on the coffee table and took a seat beside him on the couch. All right, let's begin with the basics, Olivia said, pulling out a bottle of nail polish remover and some cotton pads. First, we need to make sure your nails are clean and free of any old polish. Kashtan nodded, watching intently as Olivia demonstrated the proper technique for removing polish. He mimicked her actions, carefully wiping each nail until they were clean and bare. Now, it's time to shape your nails, Olivia continued, producing a nail file from the basket. What shape do you prefer? Round, square, or somewhere in between? Kashtan hesitated, unsure of the options. I'm not sure. What do you think would look best? Olivia examined his hands thoughtfully. With your long fingers, I think a slightly rounded square shape would be lovely. It's elegant without being too dramatic for everyday wear.
That sounds perfect,
Kashtan agreed, relief evident in his voice. As Olivia guided him through the filing process, Kashtan felt a sense of calm wash over him. The repetitive motions and his sister's patient instructions allowed him to relax into the experience. You're doing great, Eleanor, Olivia encouraged, using the name that felt increasingly right with each passing moment. Now, let's move on to cuticle care. This is an often overlooked but crucial step in nail maintenance. She produced a small bottle of cuticle oil and a wooden stick. We'll apply a drop of oil to each cuticle and then gently push them back. This helps prevent hangnails and keeps your nails looking neat and tidy. Eleanor watched in fascination as Olivia demonstrated the technique on her own hand before guiding her through the process. The scent of the cuticle oil, a light blend of almond and jojoba, filled the air between them. I never realized there was so much involved in nail care, Eleanor admitted, carefully pushing back her cuticles as instructed. Olivia chuckled. It can seem overwhelming at first, but once you get into a routine, it becomes second nature. Plus, taking care of yourself is an important part of self-expression and self-love. Eleanor nodded, absorbing her sister's words. The idea of self-love had always been a struggle, but in this moment, focusing on this small act of care, she felt a glimmer of something new, a sense of rightness and peace with herself. Now comes the fun part, Olivia announced, pulling out a selection of nail polishes. What color would you like to try? Eleanor's eyes widened at the array of options before her. She'd always admired painted nails from afar, but had never dared to experiment herself. Now, presented with the opportunity, she felt both excited and overwhelmed. I'm not sure, she admitted. What do you think would look good? Olivia considered for a moment, her gaze shifting between the polish options and Eleanor's outfit. a pink and white polka dot dress paired with nude pumps. How about a soft pink? It would complement your dress beautifully, and it's a great everyday color. Eleanor nodded eagerly. That sounds perfect! Olivia selected a bottle of pale pink polish and began explaining the application process. The key is to apply thin, even coats. Start with a base coat to protect your nails and help the color adhere better. As Eleanor watched Olivia demonstrate on her own nails, she felt a surge of excitement. This small act of painting her nails felt like a significant step in her journey to living authentically as herself. With slightly shaky hands, Eleanor began applying the base coat to her own nails. Olivia offered gentle guidance, helping her correct any mistakes and praising her progress. You're doing wonderfully, Eleanor, Olivia said warmly. Remember, practice makes perfect. No one gets it right the first time. As they worked through the process, base coat, 2 coats of color, and a top coat, Eleanor found herself relaxing more and more. The repetitive motions and focus required helped quiet the usual noise in her mind, allowing her to simply be present in the moment. While we wait for your nails to dry, let's talk about nail care between manicures, Olivia suggested. Moisturizing your hands and nails regularly is crucial, especially if you're using your hands a lot throughout the day. Eleanor nodded, carefully keeping her hands still as the polish dried. I never thought about moisturizing my nails before. Is that why they always seem so brittle? That could definitely be part of it, Olivia agreed. Drinking plenty of water and eating a balanced diet also contribute to nail health. And try to avoid using your nails as tools. No more opening soda cans with them. Eleanor laughed, a genuine, carefree sound that surprised her. Guilty as charged. I'll have to break that habit. As the afternoon wore on, Olivia shared more tips and tricks, covering everything from how to make a manicure last longer to the best ways to remove stubborn glitter polish. Eleanor absorbed it all, feeling a growing sense of excitement about incorporating these new rituals into her life. Finally, their impromptu nail care lesson came to an end. Eleanor admired her freshly painted nails, marveling at how such a simple change could make her feel so different, so much more like herself. Thank you, Olivia, she said softly, looking up at her sister with tears shimmering in her eyes. This means more to me than you know. Olivia reached out and squeezed Eleanor's hand gently, careful not to smudge the fresh polish. You're welcome, Eleanor. I'm here for you, every step of the way. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the living room windows, Eleanor felt a sense of peace settle over her. This afternoon of nail care had been more than just a beauty lesson. It was the beginning of her journey to living authentically as Eleanor. In the days that followed, Eleanor found herself paying more attention to her hands, admiring the soft pink polish that adorned her nails. Each glance served as a reminder of the steps she'd taken, the person she was becoming. A week after her nail care lesson with Olivia, Eleanor decided to venture out to a local cafe. She'd been there countless times before, but never as her true self. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Standing before her closet, Eleanor carefully selected her outfit. She opted for a flowing, blush-colored blouse paired with dark wash jeans and the nude pumps she'd worn during her manicure lesson. As she dressed, she found herself smiling at how natural it felt. How right. Eleanor took a deep breath as she approached the cafe, her newly manicured hands clutching her purse a little tighter than necessary. The cheerful bell above the door announced her arrival, and she stepped inside, the familiar aroma of coffee and freshly baked pastries enveloping her. Good morning. What can I get for you today? The barista's friendly voice greeted her as she approached the counter. Eleanor ordered her usual latte, her voice soft but steady. As she waited for her drink, she couldn't help but notice how different this familiar experience felt. The weight of her purse on her shoulder, the click of her heels on the tile floor, the way her blouse settled around her, all of it felt right in a way she'd never experienced before. Finding a quiet corner table, Eleanor settled in with her latte. She pulled out a book she'd brought along, but found herself more interested in people watching. No one gave her a second glance, and she reveled in the normalcy of the moment. As she sipped her coffee, Eleanor's gaze fell on her nails. The soft pink polish was still perfect, thanks to Olivia's expert application and Eleanor's newfound dedication to nail care. She smiled, remembering the afternoon spent with her sister, grateful for the support and acceptance she'd found there. Lost in thought, Eleanor didn't notice the woman approaching her table until she spoke. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just had to tell you, your nails are absolutely gorgeous. Did you have them done professionally? Eleanor looked up, momentarily startled. The woman standing before her was smiling warmly, her own nails a vibrant shade of coral. Oh, thank you, Eleanor replied, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. Actually, my sister taught me how to do them myself. The woman's eyes widened in appreciation. Wow, that's impressive. You did an amazing job. I'm Renee, by the way. Eleanor, she responded, the name feeling more natural on her lips with each use. It's nice to meet you, Renee. Would you mind if I joined you? I'd love to hear more about your nail care routine. I'm always looking for tips to improve mine. Eleanor hesitated for a moment, surprised by the unexpected social interaction. But something about Renee's friendly demeanor put her at ease. Of course, please have a seat. As Renee settled into the chair across from her, Eleanor felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. This was her first real conversation as Eleanor with someone who didn't know her history. It was both thrilling and terrifying. So, tell me about this nail care routine of yours, Renee prompted, her eyes sparkling with interest. Eleanor took a deep breath, steadying herself. Well, it all started about a week ago. As she recounted her afternoon with Olivia, Eleanor found herself relaxing into the conversation. Renee listened attentively, asking questions and sharing her own nail care mishaps and triumphs. I'm impressed, Renee said when Eleanor finished her story. It took me years to get my manicures looking half as good as yours. Your sister must be an excellent teacher. Eleanor smiled, warmth blooming in her chest at the compliment. She really is. I'm lucky to have her support. Their conversation flowed easily from nail care to other beauty topics, and then to books, movies, and their favorite local spots. Eleanor found herself laughing and engaging in a way she never had before, free from the constraints of pretending to be someone she wasn't. As their coffee cups emptied and the morning stretched into afternoon, Eleanor realized with a start how much time had passed. Oh, I should probably get going, she said, gathering her things. I didn't mean to take up so much of your day. Renee waved off her concern. Not at all. I've really enjoyed talking with you, Eleanor. In fact, she hesitated for a moment before continuing. I host a weekly book club at my apartment. We're always looking for new members. Would you be interested in joining us? Eleanor felt a flutter of excitement mixed with apprehension. The idea of expanding her social circle as Eleanor was both appealing and daunting, but the warmth of her conversation with Renee gave her courage. That sounds lovely, Eleanor replied, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. I'd love to join. Renee beamed, pulling out her phone. Great, let me get your number, and I'll text you the details." As they exchanged contact information, Eleanor marveled at how naturally it all unfolded. This simple outing for coffee had turned into so much more: a new friendship, an invitation to a social group, another step forward in her journey. Leaving the cafe, Eleanor felt a lightness in her step that hadn't been there before. The sun seemed brighter, the air fresher. She'd taken a risk in coming out today as her true self, and it had paid off in ways she couldn't have imagined. As she walked home, Eleanor's mind raced with possibilities. The book club would be another opportunity to be herself, to make connections as Eleanor. It was exciting and scary all at once. Arriving home, Eleanor kicked off her pumps and settled onto her couch, pulling out her phone to text Olivia. "You'll never believe what happened today," she typed, a smile playing on her lips. As she recounted her cafe adventure to her sister, Eleanor felt a surge of gratitude. That afternoon of nail care had been more than just a beauty lesson. It had been the key to unlocking a door she'd been afraid to open for so long. Eleanor glanced at her nails, the soft pink polish catching the light. Such a small thing, yet it had given her the confidence to step out into the world as herself. It was just the beginning, she knew, but it was a beautiful start. With a contented sigh, Eleanor leaned back on the couch, already looking forward to her next outing. The world was opening up to her in new and exciting ways, all because she'd finally found the courage to be true to herself. As the days passed, Eleanor found herself settling into a new routine. Each morning, she took extra care in selecting her outfit and applying her makeup, relishing the opportunity to express herself authentically. The simple act of choosing clothes that felt right, of seeing her true self reflected in the mirror, brought a joy she'd never experienced before. One evening, as Eleanor was preparing for bed, she noticed her nail polish was beginning to chip. Instead of feeling disappointed, she felt a spark of excitement. This was an opportunity to practice her newly acquired skills. Settling at her vanity, Eleanor laid out the supplies Olivia had gifted her after their nail care lesson. She took her time removing the old polish, carefully shaping her nails, and tending to her cuticles. As she worked, she found herself reflecting on how much had changed in such a short time. Just a few weeks ago, the idea of painting her own nails would have seemed impossible. Now, here she was, confidently applying a new shade, a soft lavender that complemented her blonde hair beautifully. As she waited for her nails to dry, Eleanor's phone buzzed with a text from Renee. "Don't forget, book club tomorrow night at 7. Can't wait to see you there!" Eleanor smiled, a mix of excitement and nervousness fluttering in her stomach. She'd been looking forward to the book club all week, eagerly devouring the selected novel. It would be her first time meeting a group of people as Eleanor, and while the thought was daunting, she felt ready for this next step. The following evening, Eleanor stood before her closet, deliberating over what to wear. She wanted to make a good impression, but also feel comfortable and true to herself. After much consideration, she settled on a flowing floral dress in shades of purple and cream, paired with her trusty nude pumps. As she applied the finishing touches to her makeup, Eleanor paused, studying her reflection. The person looking back at her from the mirror was so different from the one she'd seen just weeks ago. There was a light in her eyes, a confidence in her posture that had been missing before. She was becoming the person she'd always known she was meant to be. With a deep breath, Eleanor gathered her things and headed out. The walk to Renee's apartment was short, but with each step, Eleanor felt her nerves growing. By the time she reached Renee's door, her heart was racing. You can do this, she whispered to herself, smoothing down her dress. Just be yourself. Eleanor raised her hand to knock, but before she could, the door swung open. Renee stood there, a warm smile lighting up her face. Eleanor, I'm so glad you made it, Renee exclaimed, pulling her into a quick hug. Come on in, everyone's excited to meet you. As Renee led her into the living room, Eleanor took in the scene before her. A group of women were scattered around the cozy space, some perched on the couch, others lounging in armchairs. The air was filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of animated conversation. Everyone, this is Eleanor, Renee announced, her hand resting lightly on Eleanor's shoulder. Eleanor, meet the book club! A chorus of greetings filled the room, and Eleanor found herself swept up in a whirlwind of introductions. There was Maria, a vivacious woman with a contagious laugh. Emma, quiet but with sharp, insightful comments. Jasmine, whose passion for literature was evident in every word she spoke, and several others, each welcoming Eleanor with genuine warmth. As the group settled in to discuss the book, Eleanor felt her nervousness begin to fade. She listened intently as the others shared their thoughts, gradually finding the courage to offer her own insights. I loved how the author explored the theme of identity, Eleanor said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. The way the main character struggled to reconcile who she was with, who others expected her to be. It really resonated with me. The room fell silent for a moment, and Eleanor felt a flash of panic. Had she said too much? But then Maria leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. That's such an interesting perspective, Eleanor. Can you elaborate on that? And just like that, Eleanor found herself engaged in a deep, meaningful discussion about identity, self-discovery, and the courage it takes to be true to oneself. As she spoke, she felt a sense of connection with these women that she'd never experienced before. The evening flew by in a blur of laughter, thoughtful conversation, and the forging of new friendships. Before Eleanor knew it, it was time to leave. As she gathered her things, she was surprised to find herself feeling reluctant to go. This was wonderful, she said to Renee as they stood by the door. Thank you so much for inviting me. Renee beamed at her. We're so glad you came, Eleanor. You brought such a unique and valuable perspective to our discussion. I hope you'll join us again next month. Eleanor nodded enthusiastically. I wouldn't miss it for the world. As she walked home, Eleanor felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the mild evening air. She'd taken another step forward in her journey, and it had been more rewarding than she could have imagined. Reaching her apartment, Eleanor kicked off her pumps and sank onto her couch, a contented sigh escaping her lips. She pulled out her phone to text Olivia, eager to share the events of the evening. As she typed out her message, Eleanor's gaze fell on her lavender nails. She smiled, remembering how it all started with that simple afternoon of nail care. From that small beginning, she'd found the courage to step out into the world as her true self, to make new friends, to engage in meaningful conversations. Eleanor leaned back, closing her eyes and letting the events of the evening wash over her. She'd faced her fears and come out stronger for it. With each passing day, each new experience, she was becoming more comfortable in her own skin, more confident in who she was. This was just the beginning, Eleanor knew. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face them. Because now she knew the joy of living authentically, of being true to herself. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Eleanor's dreams were filled with images of the future, a future where she could fully embrace who she was, surrounded by people who accepted and loved her for her true self. It was a future she was now ready to step into, one painted nail at a time.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!